Today's guest is Ray Fu. He's the co-founder and CEO at Nickel. Ray, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, of course.
Perfect. I mean, I always like a background that has corporate experience and entrepreneurial experience. I feel like it's not one side or the other. I think you can learn from both sides. Personally, I haven't worked for a larger company. I've worked, consulted larger companies, but I haven't worked inside one. So I'm interested in your perspective on both. But what was your sort of the technology side is what you started. You learned marketing and entrepreneurship. What's been the plan? Is starting a company always been the plan?
Yeah, starting a company has always been a plan for me. I have an immigrant background. I came here when I was a kid with my parents when I was 8 years old. And, I moved around a ton. I started in Kansas, lived in Colorado, lived in Maryland, and then, ended up in New York for the past 15 years. And like a lot of immigrants, being able to build out your American dream and be able to start a company and be your own boss was definitely a dream that I had since I was a kid. I spent a lot of years in that corporate environment, building up my skills, building up my network, and really, trying to find that one opportunity and one space I was really passionate about. And lo and behold, and if I told this to my 12-year-old self, he would never believe it. But that space ended up being in construction of all places, as opposed to something else. And but I've been looking at this space since 2017, and is one that I am so incredibly passionate about today.
Really, since 2017. Does your family have an entrepreneurial background?
No, that's the funny thing is, my family are academics through and through. I do not. There isn't one person in my family on either side of the table that has ever started a business, and I think that's part of the thing that really drove me to want to start my own business. Is because I wanted to be that rebellious kid, right? I didn't want to end up at a university doing, really smart, uh, really research intensive things. I wanted to actually go branch out and go do something wild. And I think my personality is such that I get really distracted and I get very fascinated by the most random thing. So I would never be able to, dedicate my entire life researching one, tiny little subject and being 1,000 miles deep in the way that my dad, my mom, and the rest of my family are. So
Yeah, yeah. I
it's
mean, you're saying that you moved around a bit. I did too, growing up. What was that about? Moving to different areas.
Yeah, it was kind of the typical immigrant story, I guess. My parents came to the United States in 1997 in order to for higher education. They moved from university to university in order to get their PhD, get their postdoc, and then taught at different universities. So that's why we ended up moving around a little bit. So I like to say I grew up on college campuses, starting when I was 9 years old.
Got it. So why construction? So 2017, it didn't land on your lap this year or a year and a half or whatever ago. Like why was the construction space interesting to you?
Yeah, to be honest, I kind of fell on the industry completely randomly and serendipitously. I spent the first half of my career in fintech, in financial services, working with large banks and insurance companies to build much better products for small businesses and for consumers. And back in 2017, my wife was going to business school, and we decided to move from New York out to California. And because of the relocation, I needed a new job. And it just happened that Stanley Black and Decker, the makers of DeWalt, Craftsman, some of the biggest construction brands in the world, was looking to set up this whole new innovation team. And the opportunity, fell on my lap to be one of the co-founders of that team and set up and figure out how to innovate within this space that has not really changed too much, right, for the past 70, 80 years. And just that thought was really exciting to me. I loved financial services before. It has some of the same issues as construction, being a very old industry that hasn't changed too much. But, where construction really drew to me was just how tangible it was, right? You can talk to folks and really be able to understand what they do and be able to see the impact that they do. And that tangibleness uh, initially drew me into the industry. And I figured, hey, why not give it a shot? And ended up falling absolutely in love with it within the first 6 months, to the point where I was watching, my wife said I had a problem because I was watching probably 20 hours worth of videos on a weekly basis, just learning how to pour concrete, how to frame up, lumber, and just trying to get smarter about the industry. And I just loved every aspect of it.
Yeah, yeah. So when you're building this innovation team, you know, I get the sense that, that you had to figure a lot of things out. What did you end up doing? How did you build out this team?
Yeah, it was in the early days of construction tech, the early days, 2017, 2018, back before any other companies and any mainstream investors were even really looking at this space, and before construction tech as a concept was even a thing, right? So for Stanley Black and Decker, the mandate was pretty straightforward. This is a company that's been around and been a market leader for more than 200 years. They own some of the most well-known power tools in the entire world. But they've also realized that power tools are not getting that much radically better, right? Now that we've electrified them and all of them are running on battery, we're not going to see a massive jump in innovative products for probably the next 20, 30 years when it comes to power tools. So, in order for the business to succeed and continue to be a market leader, they needed to invest in more and more innovative tools, everything from AI to robotics, right, to software, and put those tools in the hands of builders so that they have both the hardware and the innovative tools to be able to help them be more productive, be safer on the job site, and be able to make both commercial and residential buildings much more affordable. So that was the mandate that we were giving at Stanley Black and Decker, and it was this team's job to kind of carve out that wild wild west and figure out, okay, how do we tackle this massive problem, and where are the things that we really want to invest our dollars and our time into.
Yeah, for sure. And what sort of general insights did you learn while going through the process? Because obviously, a company like Stanley Black and Decker, maybe through its own footprint or maybe through other access, you may have access to a lot more data than maybe your
Mhm.
average smaller, medium-sized company. I mean, what are some of the general things that you learned while going through this sort of? I guess you had an open-ended mandate to look
Yeah,
at new things to get into.
yeah, and I'll give you sort of a roundabout and a non-conventional answer here, and it's not to I'm not trying to avoid the question by any means, but I think for me the biggest learning was really humility, because innovating in the construction industry is incredibly hard. I think today, because of how popular construction tech is, a lot of people look at this industry and think, wow, there's a ton of opportunities. This is a $2 trillion industry. If we can just capture a very sliver of it with tech, we're going to be able to be billionaires, right? But what you're going to quickly learn in this industry is that, one, it's very fragmented, as we all know. In every sliver, there's so many different ways to slice and dice this industry, right? From the role that you play in the industry to the size of the market. And every single sliver behaves a little differently. So that's, I think, one of the biggest challenges that a lot of people looking from the outside don't quite realize. The second one is that it's not necessarily a tech problem. I think, coming from a product and tech background, you look at these problems and you think, oh my gosh, we can absolutely solve this with tech. There's no reason why software cannot solve this. But I am now at a point where I genuinely believe that a lot of the issues within construction is not a technology problem or the lack of technology problem, right? It's a people problem, it's a process problem, it's a legal and contractual problem, right? And those are things that you can't necessarily fix with the software. So I think that was one of the biggest and first learnings that I had when I entered the industry.
Yeah, for sure. I like that. Yeah, the dollar amounts are big, but for instance, in certain regions, it works this way. Over here, it works this way. How change occurs,
Right.
how change doesn't occur, it requires certain types of local understanding.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and you know, how small did you look at things? Like, you know what I mean? Like when you're looking at innovation, you said, okay, okay, there's all these things, and like you said, there's certain things, like the legal challenges and all that stuff. Obviously, for something to be exciting enough for a bigger company, right? Because
Yeah.
their 1%, their 10% improvement is a bigger
Mm,
dollar amount. Like,
sure.
what dimension did you have to look at it to try to do that? Or was there even such a mandate as well? You just explored and looked at things, or was it like, hey, we need to at least make X amount of impact potential, knowing that it's got this type of percentage of success? I don't know. Like, how did you think about it in general?
Yeah, that's a really great question. There are a lot of ways you can break down this problem and figure out how you want to explore it. And obviously, with any of these kind of experimentation, the outcome that you want is obviously it's always going to be some sort of financial or some sort of, customer impact to the main business. But at the same time, and this is one of the incredible things about scaling Black and Decker is that we also had a ton of mandate to figure out how we want to go about it, right? So we thought about the problem and kind of approached it from a couple angles, right? One is how do we actually understand this industry a little better, because back in 2017, 2018, again, you didn't have those McKinsey reports that said, hey, this is what the construction value chain looked like. So we had to go and build our own and really understand who all the players are. So I think that was step one. It was just breaking down the industry and slicing it from all the angles that we talked about, right? The different players, the different size of the player, and then the other assets, it's the type of projects that they're working on: commercial, residential, industrial, you name it, right? So step one was really understanding the industry. Step two was kind of understanding like where the adjacencies are for Stanley Black and Decker. Obviously, being one, Stanley Black and Decker was a company that was focused on pros, right? The wall line is specifically designed for pros on the job site. So we didn't want to deviate too much away from that and all of a sudden go and target architects, for example, right? That would be a little hard, and it wouldn't allow us to leverage a lot of the brand name, the and the resources that scaling Black and Decker had in order to go execute it. So we came at it from a contractor first angle and trying to understand, if you're a contractor working on these different types of projects, right? What are the problems that you have? Everything from your problems, being safe on the job site, to being able to locate your tools and materials, to being able to bid for new jobs, to being able to procure material. So that's kind of how we then try to break down the problem further, right? Going from the angle of the subcontractor and then figuring out what their day in the life looks like and the different pain points that they would have. And
Yeah.
then the last part is, we had a lot of opportunity to then go and test those different ideas that we had. So we essentially, built many startup companies in the areas that we were most interested in, and really, almost took a startup methodology to see if it's possible to build products and build go to market and develop a profitable company in each one of those spaces.
All right. Now you spent, a bunch of years there. You built up your knowledge. Um, what, how you made a leap at some point? Did you have the idea beforehand? How did it happen? Walk me through that.
Yeah. So, ever since joining Scaling Black and Decker, I've always been really interested in the intersection of fintech and construction tech. I'm obviously biased because it does combine two of the things that I know really well. But it also, like what happened to be one of those areas that is also one of the biggest problems in construction, right? It doesn't matter who you talk to on a job, all the way from the owner down to the material supplier and manufacturer, everyone is going to talk about some sort of payments problem. And I saw this firsthand based, from the hundreds of people that I've talked to as part of building those businesses, as well as, seeing it from Stanley Black and Decker's eyes, right? And the thing that I latched on to the most was really around trade credit. And the fact that if you wanted to sell anything, whether it's, your construction services or materials in the construction industry, you are typically giving out payment terms to the buyer almost always, right? And that almost becomes a requirement in order for you to win the job. But in order to give out trade credit, that requires a lot and puts a lot of burden on every single business that's extending that 15, that 30, that 60-day terms, because it means, one, you have to have a very sophisticated process for how you're going to underwrite your customers and their projects to make sure that you're not giving out, bad loans, right? That's going to hurt your balance sheet. It means that you are going to have to figure out how to protect your lien rights and send preliminary notices, send notices of uh, intends to lien, it means that you're then going to have to collect on the payment in 60 days and process a $500,000 transaction and make sure that you're settling the funds in a fast and affordable manner. These are real problems that most businesses in the construction industry, especially if you're a small business, don't really have the capabilities in-house to be able to do and to be able to do well. So that was a problem that I really latched onto, and the reason why I wanted to build Nickel. Right, we want to be that finance or credit department for these small businesses that don't have the resources to hire one themselves, and provide them with both the software and the capital to help them accept, finance, and protect lien rights on every single payment.
You said capital, so you're financing some of these transactions, or just
Correct.
okay,
Correct.
interesting.
For a lot of the small businesses that we're working with, especially the ones that are not currently providing any net terms to their customers and losing out on 10 or 20% of their deals, we actually help them provide up to net 90-day terms to their customers and making sure that they get an advance on those payments so that they can put the capital to use fabricating the materials,
Okay.
getting those shipped out.
So how much is it of a tool? How much is it of a kind of an interface for customers to interact with? Would it be fair to say, is this sort of trade financing or factoring, or is that built into this?
Yeah, so it is financing in a sense, but it is nothing like a factoring company, and this is one of the things that we heard over and over again from businesses, right? Is that they hate invoice financing and factoring companies because these companies do the opposite of what Nicole is trying to do, which is step in between the seller and the buyer. They buy out all the invoices and they tell the buyer to pay the invoicing company instead. And as a result, that raises a ton of questions, right? You have the buyer asking, wait, what's going on here? Are you going out of business? Are you okay? And it just complicates the relationship, not to mention, they're extremely expensive and extremely difficult to work with. Whereas, if you were to use Nickel to extend net terms to your customers, that is a very, very seamless experience where Nickel is taking care of the underwriting. We're providing the limits, we're providing the interest rate, and we're also helping you manage the lien so that you can actually go and collect the funds. It is a much more seamless experience, and we don't get in the way, right? That transaction is still between you and your buyer, and that's one of the biggest differences.
And I'm assuming the software creates the transparency and the accountability between both parties because the tool is being used to coordinate or manage this activity on both ends.
Correct,
Okay,
exactly.
that makes sense. Okay, so it's yeah, very cool. I like the idea. It's definitely a tricky situation. So your 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 target is it small to medium sized construction companies?
Yeah, so typically, we are starting with smaller businesses. So right now, we work with businesses that do under $50 million a year, and our goal is to be able to expand to that middle market size customer up to about 200, $300 million a year. Business over the next couple of years as our software becomes more sophisticated. Those are the customers that we want to be able to serve more over the next couple of years.
Yeah. For businesses, I can see definitely the upside. What are the risks involved in these type of businesses? Because you gotta look at the good side, but the what are your risks? In terms of getting this off the ground.
Are you talking about our risk for nickel
Yeah,
or?
your risks. I mean, it's I don't know, obviously having this in one place, you're not getting in the middle of it, them
Yeah,
working through this tool that helps people, manage this also creates some accountability. That's
yeah.
your intellectual property piece. What are your risks? I mean, do you have competitors? Like what are sort of the risks of getting this off the ground?
Yeah, I think for us, the biggest risk and challenge is really around education and uh, explain this product to people, because what we're essentially doing is creating a new category that hasn't really existed for this industry at all, right? Prior to nickel, you had these activities done in different pockets. You might have a payment processing or a payment gateway company that you will work with, or your bank, right, to accept payments. You would have some sort of invoice factoring company that you're working with in order to help provide some sort of financing for you, right? Or you're working with a bank in order to, provide these net terms off of your own balance sheet. Then you might have, outsourced BPO company that you're working with to send preliminary notices, to send notices of intents to lien, and helping you, manage your lien rights, right? So these are three different things that you're managing all completely separately. Whereas Nickel is the first all-in-one solution that can actually bring everything under the house, right, under one roof for your business. So that if you have a credit team, you can use our software to be able to quickly vet your customers, to be able to quickly maintain your lien rights and accept payments, and be able to close deals, right? And be able to close deals really fast and go from a 6 to 8 week process down to literally 24 or 48 hours. So I think our biggest challenge is really showing people what this new product could do for you, because these three things have just never really been combined before, and people haven't seen a product like this before.
Got it. And that's why, starting at the smaller ones, which, well, definitely is not the end goal, but being able to get the adoption to work. Because if you are going to a larger company and you're kind of combining things that are done for a different department, change management might be a bit more of a challenge. In a smaller
Yeah,
organization where someone's already overloaded and
yeah,
they're already taking three of the four tasks
right.
themselves, that may be an easier sell to sort of convince them to back away from that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that small businesses is not our end goal, because small businesses are absolutely our end goal. We are very passionate about
Yeah.
supporting small businesses. That's one of the things that our team enjoys the most about this job, is that we get to see the impact that we bring onto small businesses. I would say the sequencing and the reason why we go after small businesses first, and then go up market at a later time, it's really because we want to show what our product is able to do. And this goes back to the humility point that I made earlier, right? We don't want to be another tech company that comes into this industry, goes to all the middle market firms and say, look, we've never done this before, but we created a software that's going to tell your credit team exactly how to do their job better. I don't feel like that's right, and I don't feel like that's believable, right? So what we want to do is build a track record of handling this and offering essentially a credit department in the box for a lot of these small businesses, prove that we can do it ourselves significantly better than the industry benchmarks out there, and then go to the slightly larger companies and offer up our software with the backing of real data, and showing them that we're not just sitting on our high horses. We're not just tech outsiders coming into this industry. We've been in the trenches and doing this for thousands of small businesses for the last couple of years. And these are our results that, can prove it. Let us help you. Let us help you reduce your credit risk. Let us help you collect payments faster. Let us save you money and save you time on lien management. That's the ethos of the company, right? That's how we approach our customers. That's how we build relationship with our customers, and that's how we work as a company.
Okay. Very cool. I love it. Um, what yeah, you said smaller and then medium. I mean, what in terms of getting and attracting these companies, what's worked the most? Is it just directly through referrals, whatever? Do you do a bunch of marketing online stuff? What's been effective for you to get people to come in and buy in?
Yeah, there's a couple things that we really believe in. The first is, and I know I'm using a tech jargon here, but it's product-led growth. And what that essentially means is building a product that is so that people love using so much that they're getting their friends to come on board and use. And that's been a huge growth driver for us. A lot of the traffic and customers that we get are completely inbound because a manufacturer would use our product, love it so much, and they try to bring all their distributors on. And a distributor would like it so much they would bring their dealers on, and vice versa. So that's one thing. And one thing we always shoot for, right, is we want to make sure that we're building a product that customers absolutely love and want to tell their friends about. The other one is we're actually trying to pioneer a couple of new partnership models as well. On the building material side, there is a segment of companies called manufacturers rep agencies. They are essentially folks who help represent manufacturers and get those products placed into dealers, into distributors. So our thesis is that within a specific product category and in a region, those manufacturer representatives know every single business. They know the owners, they know what they need, they know the technology stack, and they are the best advocate for new products out there. But manufacturer rep agencies have never sold software before, right? Or have never partnered with technology companies to help distribute software. So Nickel is actually working directly with quite a few manufacturer reps today to actually create a new software distribution model for the building materials industry. So we're working with them so that they're not just providing products to distributors and adding value that way. They're also adding value through software recommendations, right, and offering a much more holistic consultative set of services to all of their customers and be able to add more value across the board. So that's one channel that we've been spending a lot of time on, and one that we're very excited about.
Okay, very cool. Love it. What's the other side? I mean, are you full steam ahead, no time for anything else, and that's the current plan, or do you
Yeah.
balance things, or how do you do that? Because I know you do, it sounds like you do some health things as well.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I'm not very good about this. I am not a great example of it. And, you know, my challenge is that my wife is also a workaholic. So within the household, we almost egg each other on. So
Hey,
we
if your wife is supportive, I mean,
Yeah,
that's
that's
good,
that's
right?
that's a good thing, right? You have sometimes you have couples where one person is a workaholic, the other person isn't, and you might, come in have a little bit of friction. But for the two of us, that doesn't happen. But we do end up egging each other on a little bit too much, and candidly, I should be better about work-life balance. But one of the things that I do try to do every single year is I try to sign up for a race. I am a big cyclist. I'm a big triathlete, so every single year I try to sign up for at least one race so that I have something else to look forward to, and something that kind of grounds me and makes sure that health-wise, I'm at least doing okay. I'm not
It,
just working, and I'm at least working out a little bit.
humility is the right word because not everyone side project is a triathlon. So no, Ray,
Oh,
you
don't
know,
worry, I'm very slow though. It sounds very impressive, but I'm incredibly slow.
well, Ray, thank you for sharing your story. Yeah, definitely excited on what you're doing, and
Yeah,
yeah, no, appreciate you coming on.
yeah, of course. This has been great, Tats.